Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something I know is on a lot of people's minds. Relationships. How do we even do them anymore?
Right, and you send us this book, Sex from Scratch, Making Your Own Relationship Rules. The title alone,
Yeah.
grabs you, this idea of DIY relationships.
Exactly. What you seem to be looking for was like a clearer map for modern connections, something beyond just ticking off the traditional boxes.
So yeah, our mission here is to really unpack this book. What are the core ideas,
Yeah.
the useful bits? We want to help you think about building relationships that actually work for you without all that societal pressure feeling, well, overwhelming.
Okay, but first, let's be clear about the source itself. This isn't like a peer-reviewed study or anything.
No, not at all. It's very much based on the author's own life, their experiences, plus interviews with about 100 people across the states.
And those people were mostly over 25, mostly white. That's, important context to keep in mind.
Definitely. And the author's really upfront about it. They're not saying, I'm the expert, here are the secrets. It's more like, here's what I learned, here's where I messed up, here's some stuff that helped.
Which actually makes it quite relatable, I think. It encourages you to think critically, right? See what fits for your own situation.
Exactly. And the core idea, the premise, it's pretty challenging. It questions why our culture values stability, like above everything else in relationships.
Instead of maybe valuing the learning opportunities, even in the messy bits.
Precisely. It suggests embracing the unknown, the uncertainty, whether you're single or partnered up, which feels super relevant now, doesn't it? With marriage and monogamy not being the only paths anymore.
Yeah, things are definitely shifting.
And you can see how the author's own journey, being single, casual dating, queer relationships, kind of informs that broader perspective. They've seen different ways it can work.
Okay, so let's dig in. First up, this idea of actually loving being single. That feels, well, pretty countercultural.
Totally. We're so often told singlehood is like a problem you need to fix, a temporary state of unhappiness or something.
Like a waiting room.
Yeah, exactly. And the book really pushes back hard on that. It argues being single can be incredibly valuable, a time for figuring yourself out.
Collecting data points, as they put it, on what feels good. I like that framing.
Me too. It takes the pressure off, right? It's
Yes.
about learning, not just waiting. And it really hammers home that your identity shouldn't depend on who you're dating.
Oh, that's huge. Dating isn't going to magically solve your life's problems.
Such a key reminder. That sense of self-worth has to come from within, doesn't it? Relationship or no relationship.
And then there's the whole making a move thing. The book kind of encourages taking initiative, regardless of, traditional gender stuff.
Right, like on dating apps.
Mm.
It mentions Bumble specifically, how that structure shifts the dynamic.
It empowers people to be more direct, maybe, while potentially cutting down on, like, unwanted stuff.
Potentially, yeah. It flips the script. And, well, putting yourself out there means rejection is going to happen sometimes.
Rejection. Never fun.
Nope. But the book frames it as just normal, not a personal failure, just, a mismatch, like an audition.
You don't get every part. Okay.
Exactly. And you also need to be able to give rejection respectfully, right? And accept a no without arguing or getting dramatic.
That's crucial. Direct and respectful seems to be the advice.
Yeah.
What about ending things, though? When it's run its course, communication is key there, too, I assume.
Absolutely. For anything more than, say, a very brief encounter, the book really advocates for being direct, explaining, kindly but clearly, why it's not working for you.
So, not ghosting.
Generally, no. It sees ghosting as pretty unkind if there's been some actual connection or conversation. These people confused, hurt.
But there are exceptions.
Yes, and this is important. The book acknowledges ghosting is sometimes necessary, specifically in cases of harassment. If someone's making you feel unsafe or just consistently awful.
Then cutting contact is fair game.
Yeah.
Self-protection.
Exactly. It's about that distinction. Avoiding discomfort versus protecting yourself from harm. Big difference.
Okay. Moving into the relationships themselves. Communication seems like the foundation, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the drumbeat throughout the book.
Yeah.
Honesty, intention. Especially if you're exploring anything outside traditional monogamy.
Everyone needs to be on the same page. No assumptions.
None. You got to talk about boundaries, feelings, expectations. It's the bedrock.
I also like the advice to don't overthink things. Sometimes we just know deep down if something feels wrong, right?
Totally. We get so stuck in our heads analyzing every little thing. But if a relationship consistently makes you feel bad, that's important data. Feel empowered to leave.
The book even suggests kind of categorizing people, like good for sex, good for casual dating, good for long-term. Does that feel a bit clinical?
Maybe a little. But it's pragmatic, It's about managing expectations, yours and theirs,
Mm.
and knowing your deal breakers. That's crucial.
Sticking to your deal breakers, yeah, that's about self-respect.
Definitely. Knowing your boundaries and actually enforcing them.
Now, how to communicate better. That STFU method sounded interesting. A bit provocative, the name.
Huh. Yeah, but the acronym is actually super practical. STFU, share time.
So don't hog the conversation.
Right. Then, 3 seconds. Pause after someone speaks. Let it sink in.
Give space. I like that.
Find empathy.
Yeah.
Try to understand their perspective, even if you disagree.
Okay, standard good listening.
And then the last one, understanding is not necessary.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it means you don't always have to get exactly why someone feels how they feel. You just need to acknowledge that their feelings are valid for them.
Huh. That's actually really powerful. Take some pressure off needing to fix or fully comprehend everything.
Exactly. It's surprisingly helpful. And this whole idea extends to relationship labels, too.
Right, like we need to define what partner or sex friend or whatever actually means to the people involved.
Yes. Avoid those mismatches and expectation about exclusivity, time, future stuff. Get clear. Create your own definitions if you need to.
Okay, let's shift a bit. The book brings in some feminist perspectives, like how relationship norms aren't fixed. They're tied to economics, history.
That context is fascinating, isn't it? How every generation seems to kind of judge the next one's dating habit.
Totally. Kids these days. But it's always evolving.
And it talks about invisible jobs in relationships, the emotional labor, the plan.
Oh yeah, the mental load. Who remembers the birthdays? Who manages the social calendar? Who does the emotional heavy lifting?
Exactly. The book pushes for a more equitable split of all that stuff, making those societal power dynamics visible even in our homes.
It frames feminism less as a strict rule book and more like a practice of questioning things.
Yeah, like constantly noticing and challenging the assumptions around gender, race, class, all of it,
Yeah.
and acknowledging it's messy.
The whole bad feminist idea, trying your best but knowing it's complex.
Right. It's not about perfection. And the book uses personal stories to show how even well-meaning people can fall into old patterns.
Like that no dishes and laundry rule example,
Yeah.
where they had to explicitly agree to share those specific chores to counteract assumptions.
Exactly. It shows you need awareness,
Yeah.
and you need to actually talk about it and set up your own rules sometimes to make things fair.
Okay, let's talk sex and intimacy. The book doesn't shy away from the complexities. It's not just casual fun. There are emotional and physical dimensions.
Yeah, it really grounds it.
Yeah.
It acknowledges the potential repercussions, the depth it can have.
And it talks about how things like religious upbringing or societal shame can really mess with our sexual selves.
Oh, definitely. The journey of unlearning that shame, figuring out your own orientation, maybe exploring things like non-monogamy, it's a process for many people.
And again, talking about sex openly with partners is presented as crucial.
Absolutely vital. You can't assume anything. Challenging those old gender scripts about who wants what or who initiates, it all requires conversation.
And on non-monogamy, while it's presented as valid, the book is really clear. It takes work.
So much work. Honesty, clear agreements, managing jealousy, constant communication. It's not painted as some easy breezy thing. It requires serious emotional intelligence.
Right. Not a free-for-all. Okay, let's tackle the big M, marriage. The book questions that default assumption that marriage equals success or happiness.
Yeah, it points out that lots of people are marrying later, or not at all, and questions whether happy marriages are really as common as the ideal suggests.
And it touches on the fear some people have that marriage feels like a trap, maybe, like you'll lose yourself in traditional roles.
That definitely comes up. Anxiety about being forced into a box, losing individuality.
So why not marry? The book explores a few reasons. Questioning the institution's roots, feeling it's maybe just clunky.
Yeah, like it bundles legal, social, religious stuff together, and maybe you don't want or need all of that. Plus, the desire to define your own unique partnership, your own rituals.
I found that daily consent idea interesting. The idea that in an unmarried relationship, you're actively choosing it every day, maybe more consciously.
Right. Less bound by legal obligation, perhaps more by active desire. And pragmatically, easier to end if it's not working, which might paradoxically make people feel more committed because they want to be there.
But the main takeaway seems to be intentional. Talk about it. Don't just drift into it or out of it.
Exactly. Have the real conversation with your partner about what marriage means or doesn't mean to both of you.
Okay, another huge topic, parenthood. The book really challenges the idea of a universal mothering instinct.
Yeah, it normalizes not feeling that inherent pull towards having kids. It frames it as a conscious choice, not inevitability.
And emphasizes that wanting kids or not wanting them is a massive deal breaker, needs to be discussed early.
Absolutely critical. You can't really compromise on that one. It's fundamental. Needs to be out in the open early on
The book explores reasons for being child-free too, freedom, career, other passions.
and validates those choices. Presents them as legitimate, well thought out life paths, not just selfishness.
It acknowledges parents might be disappointed initially if you choose not to have kids, but suggests acceptance is possible over time.
Which is hopeful, right? Relationships with family can evolve around these big life choices.
And access to birth control is highlighted as fundamental, along with the challenges some face getting sterilization.
Yeah, that practical side of reproductive autonomy is crucial for making these choices real.
Lastly on this, it touches on regret. The double standard around mothers expressing regret, and also that childless couples often report high happiness levels.
It just adds nuance, doesn't it? Challenges the simple narrative that parenthood is the only route to fulfillment.
Okay, let's talk gender identity. The book states pretty clearly, gender is largely a social construct.
Right, and uses historical examples like third genders in different cultures to show the binary isn't universal or fixed.
It shares lessons learned from trans and genderqueer folks, things like the sheer weight of gender expectations,
How fluid gender roles can actually be,
the importance of talking about gender openly.
and the absolute need for supportive partners and community. These insights are valuable for everyone, I think.
Totally. It broadens everyone's understanding. The story of Stu Rasmussen, the first trans mayor, really highlights that community support aspect.
Yeah, a powerful, real-world example of transition and acceptance shows gender identity doesn't limit capability.
All right, final big section, breakups. The book reframes them, which I think is so helpful, not as failure.
But as potentially brave, smart decisions. Sometimes ending it is the healthiest choice. Takes away that stigma.
And it says happiness is a basic need. You need to recognize when a relationship is making you unhappy, even if there's no huge blow up.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just not right anymore. And that's okay. Trusting that feeling is important.
Knowing your needs, your deal breakers, and it being okay to change your mind about where things are going.
Yes, you're allowed to evolve. What you wanted a year ago might not be what you need now. Prioritize your well-being.
It also suggests practical things like counseling, making a plan if you're thinking of leaving.
Sensible steps, getting support, thinking through the logistics. It can make a hard process a bit more manageable.
And it says there's no single right way to break up, and sometimes friendship afterwards is possible.
Yeah, it offers that possibility, while acknowledging it depends entirely on the situation and whether both people are truly okay with it. Needs healthy processing first.
The core message seems to be trust yourself, learn from it. Every relationship teaches you something.
That reflection piece. Understanding your patterns, your needs better for the future. It's valuable, even when it hurts.
And finally, self-care after a breakup, practical stuff.
Crucial stuff. Allowing feelings, finding healthy distractions, looking after your physical health, self-compassion, being kind to yourself.
Wow, okay. We covered a lot there. That was a real deep dive into sex from scratch.
We really did. So to kind of boil down for everyone listening.
Yeah, the big themes. Be active in defining your own relationship rules. Don't just accept the defaults.
Communication. Honest, open communication is the absolute foundation.
Challenging those old norms around being single, marriage, gender roles, having kids.
Seeing breakups not as failure, but sometimes as necessary steps towards happiness.
And ultimately, self-awareness. Prioritizing your own needs and well-being in all of it.
Absolutely. So thinking about all these different ideas and perspectives, here's something to maybe chew on.
Okay, hit us with it.
What single rule or idea from everything we talked about resonates most with you right now? Is there one thing that really landed?
And maybe think about how you could intentionally apply that, even in a small way, in your own life or relationships moving forward.
Exactly. Because understanding yourself, what you actually want and need, that's got to be the first step to building connections that genuinely work for you.
Yeah. Consider this deep dive just the beginning of that exploration.
Definitely. Keep thinking, keep talking, keep figuring out what feels right for you.